All right, good morning. So what we're going to do today, was helping some of my subscribers with this proposal, and we were putting it together. And so what I want to do is I want to use this as an example to go over with people who are bidding off of FedBizOpps and other sites as a prime contractor. If it's your first time, I just want to use this as a good example since it's actually fresh in my mind and it's current. So this is a request for proposal, as you can see, and it tells you who it's from, it says the RFP, period of performance, the issue date, closing date. It's a USAID contract, and then it gives you all the information regarding it. The department is based out of Abuja, Nigeria. And so, again, like I said, one of our subscribers sent this over to me and asked me to help him walk through it in terms of putting this thing together. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing that I did was I went through and I read the instructions to the offerors. Because why? Before we decide to spend a whole lot of time and effort on any of these things, we want to make sure that we can meet the minimum requirements. So let's just go through real quick. The statement of work tells you that essentially they're delivering some books. So they're requesting this quantity here of these books. Their soft copy templates will be provided, and then you have to reproduce these books in terms of these quantities. So it's 183,000 books, and then they have to be delivered to this city near Nigeria, near Abuja, which is Bachi and Sokoto. I hope I didn't mess up those names too bad. But nevertheless, it tells you some of the milestones. Did I skip over that? Okay. So it tells you the milestones that you have to meet. Milestone 1, it tells you the payment amount. Milestone 2, payment amount. Milestone 3, payment amount. And then it gives you the description, tells you about being non-compliant and how you're penalized. Here is the technical specifications that you have to meet in terms of printing and producing those books. And then here's the instructions. And this is where it's key for you to review prior to even, like I said, spending a whole lot of time on any proposal that you're going to be writing up for the government, because it is a huge undertaking for you and your staff and then who else you employ or partner with on certain design build proposals that were like $6 to $8 million. I mean, we've spent probably 2 weeks with like 5 persons. So you're talking about 40 hours per man. That's 200 hours. We spent probably 400 man hours putting some of these things together. So they're a huge undertaking, which is one, why I encourage you to be a subcontractor, because you don't have to do this. And then 2, why I tell you to read the instructions first, because it does require a huge commitment on your part in terms of time and resources, and you're not guaranteed any success. So let's go through this. And right away, some of the questions that I asked him, I looked at and I said, so we went through. So it says here, you must state within your proposal the valid period of your offer. The minimum offer acceptance period is 90 days. So you've got to keep that in mind. So once you give them a price, you've got to be locked in for 90 days. If not, then your offer it doesn't extend the period, you'll be rejected right away. So that's one of the first things. You have to make sure that whoever you're working with, if you get a price from a supplier who's going to produce this for you or a subcontractor, you have to make sure that their price proposal extends out past the 90-day period. Because if, for example, you guarantee this entity that you're going to do it for 90 days, or you can do it for 120 days, and then the person who you employ determines that their price is only valid for 60 days, you're going to be in a whole heap of trouble. And I can tell you from experience on the private sector that I had a contract that the price period was locked in and it was still buildings, right? But what happened was the owner, actually the prime contractor and the owner, they couldn't make up their mind in terms of how to get this thing approved. So it carried out beyond that period of time. And guess what? I was faced with a cost escalation because of the increase in the cost of my raw materials. And I was hit with a $40,000 change order from my supplier. And then I could not pass that along to the owner or the prime contractor because in my contract, I agreed to the price was fixed for the period of time until, it was delivered. And so I had to absorb I think it was a $43,000 change order. I mean, granted, it was a $700,000 contract, but still $43,000. I mean, you're starting to eat into a big chunk of your profit on that. So keep that in mind, making sure that if they're going to tell you that you've got 90 days, you've got to pass that same information down to whoever's providing this project, the materials, the producing it for you. You've got to make sure you carry that down. Technical proposal and cost business proposal. So you got to, when you're putting this together, make sure they're asking for a technical proposal and a cost business proposal. I actually, and then they're going to tell you how they rank it based on points and score you on your technical evaluation. This is excellent in my opinion, because why? This is one of the reasons why I tell people I like working with the federal government, because it's not just low bid situation. It's lowest cost, technically acceptable bid. Meaning if you're not technically acceptable, you're rejected, and then they move on to the next bidder. Number 6, offers must be licensed and authorized to conduct business in Nigeria as evidenced by submission of a copy of a valid Corporate Affairs Commission license, all right, or CAC license. The copy license must clearly show a license number, official government stamp, and a date of issue and date of expiry. It was funny because the person that I was working with on this, he was very frustrated by this situation. He didn't like that they had put this in there. And he said, why did they put that in there? And my comment to him was, listen, the beauty of it, don't knock why the government makes these rules and regulations and these criteria. Don't knock it. Okay, look at it as an opportunity, because if you are a person who does business in Nigeria, or you're affiliated with people in Africa, or you're affiliated with companies in Africa, keep in mind that this is one of the ways that you can start to distance yourself from the competition, right? This is one of those niches, depending on how you pronounce it. So this is an opportunity for you to find out how do you get that license so that the next time a bid comes out or an RFP comes out that's in Nigeria, your company will be qualified to do it. And that will put you within an even smaller group of companies, American-based companies, that can do business in Nigeria. So then when you go into a smaller pool, the competition reduces, and then hopefully you'll have the expertise to be able to capitalize on it. But don't look at these things and say, well, why did the government do this? Or why did the government do that? Or why did they, put these very stringent requirements in there? And this particular instance, they could have put it in there because for a host of reasons. I mean, first thing comes to my mind is maybe they had someone already in mind they want to give the project to. So they reduced narrowed the criteria so that only a limited number of people could participate. The other thing that comes to my mind right away is that obviously they want to make sure you can do business in Nigeria, because maybe it's a dangerous place. Maybe it's not an easy place to do business. Maybe you can't trade there, or maybe they understand that the laws in Nigeria prevent companies from coming over there and distributing products and materials and supplies and things of that sort. So maybe they already understand this, and we sitting here on the other end don't know that. But hopefully, based on listening to me and my experiences when I'm sharing with you guys, you change how you perceive these things. You don't look at them as negatives. You see them as an opportunity for you to kind of like set yourself apart from everyone else. But this is a biggie for me, because this is where I said to them, listen, if you can't meet this requirement, don't spend any more time on this proposal. And it's just simple as that. Fortunately, the person who reached out to me originally, he says that his sister has this license, and we'll double back on that in a minute, but let's just keep going through this. All right, number 7, no cost incurred by offers and preparing and submitting a proposal are reimbursable. It's what I told you. So all the time that you're going to spend in putting this thing together, you're not getting your money back. Awards shall be made to the responsive subcontractors. Again, lowest cost, responsive bidders. So to help to make the determination, you must provide a cover letter and attachment 4. Late offers, it says in accordance with the instruction therein, you will be rejected. Modification, withdrawal of offers. You may have the right to withdraw, modify, correct the offer after it's been delivered to their address, and provide the requested date before the RFP closing date. Disposition proposals, clarification of any amendments. All right, let's keep going down. So here, failure to agree and comply with any of the above specifications will result in an offer being considered unresponsive and the proposal may be rejected. Keep in mind, it says may be rejected. That gives me hope. Even if you make a mistake, you still have an opportunity to be considered, because I believe is that there's not going to be a whole lot of people that qualify for something, all these stringent requirements, but you never know. All right, moving on. Submission proposal. So it tells you 2 separate envelopes. All right, so you've got to basically, it says 2 separate envelopes inside one big envelope. So you're going to basically put together one big envelope with 2 envelopes inside. It's pretty straightforward. The first envelope is going to be technical, second to be cost business proposal. Why do they do that? Because maybe they have different people reviewing the technical as they do reviewing the cost. And so they want to be able to hand those out and actually base you on your merit of their technical proposal before looking at the cost. They don't want to be influenced by the cost. So they want to look at your technical, determine if you're valid, and then move on to the cost. If your technical is not valid, they'll throw your cost out and they'll never even look at the price. All right. So it should be labeled with RFP number, project title. It gives you the format, who did that, since your technical and cost proposals separately will be automatically disqualified. The content of proposals contain these items 1, 2, 3, 4. It tells you the cover letter must have your letterhead and contain the information requested. includes your business license, and then here you put your technical proposal, and then it goes into the cost business proposal. Oh, by the way, when we're looking at this technical proposal above, it says the technical proposal should be divided into clearly separate sections following the same order of the evaluation criteria in attachment 3. Do not write something that is out of order. This is simply following instructions. Do not just arbitrarily start writing about who you are and what you do and your history and all this blah, 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 because they want to make it as easy as possible. A lot of times, the people that are reviewing these things are government employees. Government employees are lazy. They get paid the same amount of money, whether they do well or they do poorly. They're not really incentivized to go over and above. So make their job as easy as possible. Try to follow the instructions to the letter. If they tell you 12-point font, use 12-point font. They say use Times Roman, use Times Roman. If they tell you what the margins should be, what the spacing should be, please make sure you follow all that information to the T, because you don't want to give them any reason to reject your offer. All right, if your offer submits a proposal that fails to respond to the majority of the information requested in this RFP as outlined specifically in the statement of work and evaluation criteria, you will be automatically disqualified. That's what I'm saying. Do not give these people any reason to disqualify you. So now let's go back to where I said cost and business proposal. It asks for a detailed budget that provides a breakdown of cost by line item. Note that indirect and overhead costs should be listed as separate line item in the budget and should not be built into direct costs. It gives you a template. Use the template provided in the evaluation criteria, attachment 3. Not use any loaded rates for labor. Should include base labor rates only. Forms of loaded rates, inclusive of staff bonuses or any type of financial benefit, will be rejected. This is interesting because I know here when we have Davis-Bacon rates and we actually submit our payroll forms, a lot of times these things are included. But here it's saying not to include any other types of benefits. So again, every proposal is different. Every RFP is different. Make sure you follow the instructions. Detailed and comprehensive cost notes that provides information on each line item in this budget explains why each items are needed for implementation activity. If indirect rates are charged, you must provide supporting computations for allocation of indirect/overhead costs, a copy of an audit report and balance sheet, and a P&L expenditure. We're not going to go into that detail because it would require a whole nother video for me to explain to you what they mean by that. But essentially, when you're calculating your costs, your overhead costs, they want to see your company's overhead, and then they want you to extrapolate based on that and how this particular job is going to impact your company overhead and how you're charging for it related to this particular RFP. But that's a whole nother subject matter. We're not going to go into that detail. Just note that you have to show them proof and evidence of how you come up with your numbers. Here we are. Sample evaluation. This is attachment 3, your criteria. Again, your basis of your award. See, the only cost business proposals that surpass the minimum qualifying scoring of 70 points in the technical evaluation have their cost business proposal reviewed. Excellent. I love that because unlike the county and unlike the state, these people are looking at your ability to perform, which in my opinion makes the most sense. If the government is going to be procuring services, don't you want to know that the person doing it can perform? This is a way that they use to determine that. So here's your sample evaluation criteria. Technical competence, 100 points. Technical approach, 80 points. And it goes over, number 1, your capacity of print facility, 15 points. Number 2, quality of print samples, 30 points. And then it breaks it down, 10, 10, 5, 5. Scheduling plan, 15 points. That gives you a total of 60 points. Past performance and experience, that's 20 points. Cost, reasonableness, and financial capability, that's another 20 points. When we're talking about technical approach, the people say, well, Eric, how do I put together this? Again, what we want to do, we want to follow the order. So when you're putting this together, you want to make sure you, number 1, number 2, number 3. Okay, you want to put in your past performance, put it in this exact format. Here, cost, reasonableness, and financial capability, put it in this format. You copy and paste the format. Now here, what do? You're going to write, it tells you, brief explanation. What do they want to know? They're looking for a vendor that's able to manage a high volume print run. You should submit a list of available equipment. Very easy. So let's go through. What equipment do you have? Or, well, Eric, it's not my company. And so, I don't have any equipment. Okay. However you determine your price, from whom did you determine your price? What equipment do they have? What equipment are they going to be using to produce this for you? You need to get all that information on the equipment. Let's list out the equipment, and let's make sure that the equipment says established sheet, offset, and web offset lithography printing press. So you're going to make sure equipment meets this. Offer specialization, both sheet offset and web offset. You got to make sure equipment meets that criteria. Have previous textbook printing publications experience, at least one similar contract of similar scope of textbook printing. Whoever you're using or however you're going to be to do this for you, you've got to get this information from them. You've got to reach out to them and say, hey, look, we need some past performance. I'm going to say this. One of the things that I teach people is when you're working with suppliers and subcontractors, you want to work with the best possible companies. If the company that you receive a quote from cannot give you a past reference or past publication experience, then I would recommend you not work with that company. Because why? They're going to let you down when you win the award. Let's assume that you win the award and they've never done this before. What gives you the confidence moving forward that this company can fulfill this massive volume of printing and the time needed to deliver? So bear that in mind. When you're looking at these things, you want to keep in mind that, hey, look, if this company, this supplier who you're using, this vendor, if they can't provide you with a reference of similar contract, similar scope, that doesn't give me any faith or confidence knowing moving forward that these people are the ones that I want to use a job, and I would move on to someone else. Or I would pass up on this RFP or RFQ altogether. I just wouldn't do it, because the worst thing in the world that can happen is you can get this contract and then fail to perform, and then you're in a whole heap of trouble. And so I would just say for your own peace of mind, I would want this information anyways. I mean, you should be asking them for a reference anyways. You shouldn't just go off of what John or Tom or, Frank told you. You should say, listen, can I have a reference? Have you done this before in the past? Can I have a reference? Give me the name and number of the person. Let me give them a call and talk to them. And then call the person and talk to them and say, hey, listen, my name is Eric. I understand that you work with Kink of FedEx and they printed out some books for you. Can you tell me about your experience? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, look, I don't mean to take much of your time. Did FedEx print out 1,000 books for you and get it turned around in 30 days? The cover pages were glossy. Or, hey, look, I understand that FedEx does all your offset printing, your web offset lithography printing. Is that correct? Yeah, sure. When's the last time they did that for you? Oh, great. Okay. How was your experience? Well, I tell you what, they were a little bit slow, but overall they did it. And so that gives you some indication as to whether or not you want to work with these people. Desktop publishing, applications, devices to support. They just want to make sure that you can meet all those requirements. So when you're going through, when you're deciding who to work with, make sure they have the capacity and the ability to produce this, to print it. And then here, look, finishing and binding capacity. So you've got to have your ability to bind this. Also, packing capacity with 5-ply cardboard boxes and 3-ply cardboard boxes. Packaging must be moisture resistant. You're able to demonstrate capacity to handle large print runs will be scored more favorably than those who cannot demonstrate experience. How do you get 15 points? This is it. If you can demonstrate the ability to handle large print runs, then you're going to get more favorable scoring. Very straightforward. If this was my company and I was putting this together, I would specifically look for companies that do this. A lot of people say, Eric, how did you become a consultant? What did you do? Well, here's an opportunity. I'm pretty sure that the companies in Nigeria or Abuja are not familiar with this opportunity. They don't know anything about it. Why not? If you have a family member or you're from there or you know someone that lives there, why not pick up the phone, call your family and say, hey, who is the best printing company in Abuja? Why not have that person go and visit them, talk to them and say, hey, listen, I've got a government contract here that I'm putting together and I want you to be my exclusive company for this. If this is what they do, they're not going to tell you no. And then I would work with that company. Why? That's going to give you the highest scoring of any other person, entity, period, in the entire world. Because you are going to the source of where this is being handled. Unless someone else went to them first, you should, by evidence here, by where it's saying, you should score the highest in this particular category. And I'm going to say this. I would assume a person calling me about this opportunity is already connected in that area. Otherwise, you wouldn't be looking at a contract in Abuja, Nigeria, if you're not connected over there. And to answer your question before you guys send me an email, yes, the person's sister does, like I said earlier, his sister lives over there and she's connected, and she does printing. But her printing company has not had this kind of experience. So again, I recommend it for him to have his sister, because she does printing, to go to a person that has a lot more experience and then use them and work with that company. I would do like a teaming arrangement where we all work together and get this thing put together. Again, that's the federal government. It encourages teaming arrangements. They just want to make sure that this thing can get accomplished, because a lot of times this stuff is mission critical. And when it's mission critical, they have the ability, but they really don't want to go back and kick you off the job and then hire somebody else. All right, number 2, quality of print samples. This is 30 points. They want to make sure that when they're looking at determining who's going to choose this, they want to make sure that your samples meet the minimum standards. And so it tells you what the minimum standards are. They want to contract high quality vendors who can deliver the best value to local partners. You must provide 2 material samples and electronic copy. You're expected to provide complete printed and bound copies. Sample evaluate based on these things. What does that mean? What did I tell you? When you're looking at these RFPs, before you start to jump the gun and get involved in this stuff, look at the amount of work that has to go into this. So if you can't meet the minimum criteria, don't do it. They're already wanting 2 samples of these books. Number 2, they want to see samples of print quality. So they want you to print Learner's Reader. They want you to give them a sample of Learner's Reader 1, Beta da Karatu, and Learner's Literacy Primer, Mukoyu Karatu. So this is the first one. So they want the sample. This is 66 pages. And again, the first page is in full color, and then the rest are black and white. And they want a sample of this document printed. And this has to be submitted along with your technical proposal. This is what they're going to be scoring you on. So you've got to invest money now. You've got to actually print this stuff, and you've got to invest money. And your scoring criteria, the 30 points, will be based on the quality of the print. So it tells you overall impressions of the quality, conformance to specifications, quality of the binding, you have it bound, and then the quality of the cover material. So you've got to print that one and Learner's Literacy Primary, the other one. You've got to spend some money here. It's not just, give them a price and go from there. You could actually spend some money, produce these covers, have these things bound, and send them over to them. And it's got to be delivered in Africa. So they're going to be, again, this is part of your scoring criteria. Again, another reason why I say a lot of times it's easier just to be the subcontractor for this job, But, because for example, if you were, let's say you were aware of this project, the person who wins this project goes through and they do all this work. Once they are awarded the project, then you pick up the phone, you call them, and then you tell them, hey, look, I'm over in Abuja, and let me give you a price on doing the same work. They're going to consider it. I'm not saying they're going to choose you, but they're going to consider it. And so you won't have to invest the same amount of time and effort and energy as you would if you were doing all this work. If this is in your wheelhouse, go for it. Definitely being a prime is way better than being a sub in a lot of instances. But in some instances, it's not. All the responsibility, all the headache will fall on you. Scheduling plan. Describe clearly the practical steps you will take to ensure that all deliverables in the scope will be achieved. Given that the tight timeline to implement the work, what steps will you take to ensure that all work adheres to deadlines as stated? Schedule plans that are more realistic and that propose realistic timelines. The mitigation plans will be evaluated more favorably. You've got to have plan A, plan B, plan C. What do they mean by mitigation plans? What happens if everything that you say A through Z doesn't work? Then what do? How do you mitigate that? Meaning, are you going to go to a second printing company? Are you going to have it printed in the United States and then shipped to Africa? What's your backup plan? That's what they're talking about. All right. And so that's your initial 60 points. Now, past performance. Again, I would not work with a company that couldn't produce the past performance. This is another 20 point scoring. Cost, reasonableness, and financial capability. This is talking about your staffing, material, equipment, program administration days. So they want to know, here's a sample format for your budget. How you determine your budget on your staffing, how you determine your budget on your material equipment. They want to know all this stuff. Why? Eric, why are they asking all this information? Because they want to make sure that you can do it. They want to make sure you can deliver the job. And the person that has all this information down is more likely to be able to deliver on and execute this than a person who can't put this information down. Just because someone gives you a price and let's say, hey, I can do this for $1 million. Show me. And the federal level, to be a prime, they want you to show. They don't want you to say, here's $1 million. Do it. No, show me how you can do it. For a lot of us out here who are already doing these contract proposals, we like this because it allows us to explain to the government in certain instances where they miss things. because sometimes the government may underestimate the cost of a job because they're not quite aware of all this stuff. Yeah, they've got their numbers and they've got their budgets based on history. But if we have experience on our side, which a lot of times, again, if you're working with experts in their particular arenas, you're going to have experience on your side. We have experience on our side. And what does that yield us? Experience yields us the ability to be able to explain to them where they fell short and what they missed. And then in the many instances for us to ask for and receive a higher price as a result of that. And the government understands that. They know that they don't know everything. And so that's why they ask these questions, because we can go in and to say, look, listen, you want 183,000 books. However, the staff that we have, it's not like we're not currently working right now. So in order for us, and this is an example that happened on one of my recent projects last year, we are already working. We can meet your requirements, but not in the timeline that you need. So in order for us to meet the requirements, that means we'd have to push other projects aside, or we would have to have our staff working overtime and extra hours. So if you want us to fit you into our existing schedule because of your large quantity, which for many people, it may be their annual quantity, and that happened in my case on my ACM panels that we delivered. The company that there's only 3 companies in America that made these specific type of panels. Well, the company that we use, the amount that I needed to purchase was the annual quantity that they produce. So they came to us and said, listen, we already have existing customers that buy from us year in and year out. They've been buying for 10, 15, 20 years. Yes, you guys are our largest single customer, but you're also only one customer. And, 2, 3, 4 years from now, we're going to still be needing our regular customers to continue operating our business. So we're not going to just kick them to the curb and stop delivering to them when they buy from us every year. So if you want us to fit you into our schedules, then what we have to do is one of 2 things. And the option that we took was they said that they could give us, to allow us to meet the initial deliveries, they gave us an estimate of cost to have every employee in the company work overtime 7 days a week, Saturdays and Sundays. They gave us an estimate of what the overtime would cost for them in order for them to meet our schedule. And so that's what we did. This is an example of where you have the opportunity to do that. And so it was, in our particular case, it was like $40,000 in overtime hours that we paid out, but it allowed us to have our materials delivered a whole month earlier. So we bit the bullet and paid for it. But this is your opportunity to explain to the government that, hey, listen, any company who's going to be producing this type of materials, printing, they're not sitting around with their thumbs dangling. They're working right now. They're currently working. They currently have production. They're currently doing things. So in order for it to fit you into their schedule, there's going to be some cost ramp up, and you have your opportunity here to explain that and how that works and show the government. And in that case, command a little bit higher price as a result of it. So we like these types of technical proposals. Attachment 4, here's your format for your proposal cover letter to be printed on your organizational letterhead. And then here's some FAR clauses that you must adhere to. So that pretty much covers everything in this RFP. Keep in mind a few things. Make sure that you look at your instructions to the offerors first to determine whether or not you have the capabilities of executing something like this before taking on the challenge of putting your team, investing your money and investing your time and wasting other people's times, particularly people who you're teaming with, because I treat my teaming partners like gold. I don't waste anyone's time for anything. I make sure that I go through it first and, make sure we can check off the boxes for at least the minimum standards. And then what we do is, then I make a determination whether or not to take it to my teaming partner or whoever, the firm that I'm consulting with, or, whoever the case may be, whoever I decide to work with on this particular opportunity. So before you bring in someone else, before you reach out to someone like me, because, what happens when you start wasting people's time? They stop returning your phone calls, they stop responding to you and whatnot. So before you decide that, you reach out and ask for help on one of these things, make sure that at the very least you can, or you have someone in mind that can meet the minimum standards as per the instructions. And if you don't, just pass it up and go on to the next opportunity. Okay? All right. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hey guys, if you like that video, you like what you saw, click the subscribe button to my left to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, we've got a bunch of goodies for you below at scorecontracts.com/resources. Stay tuned for this next upcoming video.